Today I'm going to be discussing my top B movies, and this was actually a very difficult list for me to make because not only do I love so many, I mean that fact alone, this will probably have to be a multi-part kind of ongoing series, but what exactly constitutes a B movie? Some people's definitions of B are different than others. Some see some A movies as B movies and some B movies as Z movies. Who knows? But this is just kind of my general list. Maybe some stuff doesn't belong on here, maybe some stuff does, but it's how I see it, and that's how we're going to do it. Number 5 on the list, and that would be 1978's Star Crash, which is one of the many movies that came in the wake of Star Wars. But wow, is it a good one. If any of you who haven't seen Star Crash, you should just turn this off and stop wasting your time with bubble-headed movies like myself and run watch Star Crash. So basically, Star Crash is about a sexy, scantily clad Caroline Munro who is a smuggler and her afroed, mystical in nature sidekick. Anyway, and their misadventures, and they get wrapped up in this big galactic plot. And again, I know it's sounding a little Star Warsy, but it goes off and definitely does its own things. It's a great looking movie with a great vibe to it. A lot of people consider it a B movie. I think of it as an A movie because it's got some top-notch cast. As I said, Caroline Munro, David Hasselhoff. I mean, how can you go wrong with the Hoff? And it's just got a little bit of everything. Amazon women, it's got stop motion, a redneck space android sheriffy guy who is one of the best characters that deserves an action figure, and of course all of Caroline Munro's groovy outfits. Directed by Italian Luigi Koji, not totally sure how you pronounce that. He called it a science fantasy because he didn't necessarily like the term science fiction, and I can see that as well. And this is just a great, very underrated gem. But I think everyone I know who has seen it, who is actually a fan of B movies and cult type films, liked it. The only negative stuff I've ever heard about it is kind of too cool for school kind of YouTuber and reviewers and those kind of people that just, want to poo-poo everything that is awesome in the universe. And Star Crash is definitely something that's awesome in the universe. And interestingly, I read when I was doing research for this episode that Rolling Stone, of all publications, had it on their list of 50 best sci-fi films of all time. So it was actually nice to see it getting a little bit of love there. That's Star Crash, 1978. Highly recommend that. Alright, next on the list is the most recent film on said list, and that is 2010's Big Tits Zombie from Japan. Yep, Big Tits Zombie. Though in Japan, and I won't try to pronounce the Japanese name because I know I'd butcher it, but the translation, the literal translation of the actual Japanese title is Big Tits Dragon. ... Hot Spring Zombie vs. Stripper 5. Now, Big Tit Zombie, as it's known in the West, it may sound like an adult film-ish, and it actually stars a bunch of Japanese porn stars. It's actually not. It's fairly low on nudity and that sort of thing, and it's more so just a comedy. And not only is it a comedy, supposedly it's a parody of a lot of Japanese culture stuff. Caught some of it, didn't catch all of it. Either way, very amusing, very fun zombie movie. And the basic premise is a group of very dysfunctional, but very creative, colorful, unique charactery strippers are dealing with a zombie apocalypse or a zombie outbreak, which may or may not have begun in the basement of the very same strip club. It is based on a manga by the translated title of Big Tits Dragon, which again is interesting because there's no dragons in it as far as I know. But it's a really fun movie. It's funny too. And this is an unusual case because this is one where I would highly recommend watching the dub. Because it is such an unusual, funny film, rather than just doing a literal translation, which I'm assuming the company that put the movie out figured people would just be watching the subtitles, the subtitled version, they kind of did their own dub. And it doesn't necessarily follow what's going on, say, on the screen. It's more of an example of something like if you remember from Night Flight, the Dynaman series, where they did their own dub of the thing, further lampooning what's going on with more westerny jokes, and it is really funny, and it's a really good dub. I mean, heck, watch both, but if you're just one of those people that are all about the subtitles, give this dub a shot, because it's a totally different spin on the material and a totally different spin on the movie, which makes it quite good. Yeah, Big Tit Zombie. Definitely check that one out if you can still find it. And with DVDs getting rarer and harder to find these days, sometimes this stuff goes out of print and you can't get it anymore. Alrighty, moving right along to... Sorry, I gotta check my notes. Number 3 on the list, and that is 1988's direct-to-video Nightmare Sisters. And some have called this the unholy trinity, the holy grail, the ultimate in the 80s Scream Queen films, because it stars Linnea Quigley, Brinke Stevens, and Michelle Bauer. And the amazing thing about this, because I know that B-movie fans will probably be very quick to point out, well, all 3 of those were in Sorority Babes and the Slimeball Ballerama as well, but they weren't together. This film starred the 3 of them together, interacting with each other the whole time as the main cast. And let me tell you, Nightmare Sisters, which was a lost film for a long time, is great. Not only is it slam full of all the wonderful late 80s Dave Dakota sleaze you could possibly imagine, it's actually really funny and a really fun movie. It stars the 3 Ultimate Scream Queens as 3 extremely over-the-top, wonderfully nerdy sorority girls that just cannot get dates. They are just a mess, and Linnea wears these crazy big prosthetic teeth, and I'm sure they were just having a ton of fun making this because it was so different for them all, and you can tell. I mean, it really comes across how much fun they were having making it, or at least that's what it seems like to me, and just so much fun. And basically they invite some dudes over and kind of play with a cursed crystal ball, and they get possessed by succubi and end up getting all sexified and demonic, and that's really all you need to know. If I haven't sold you by now, you probably shouldn't be watching this channel. I don't even know why you're here, because I would be halfway out the door and down the street to Amoeba by now if I'd never seen this. And this one has some great music in it as well. And a very, very cool thing is Linnea performs the Santa Monica Boulevard song by her band. Is it The Skirts? Sorry, should have looked that up. But Linnea performs an actual song, and it's kind of set up looking like a music video. But it's like a very sleazy kind of music video with an amazing song. I really wish Linnea had done more with music, because I really like her speaking voice is great to begin with, but her singing voice is really cool too. And just some little trivia about the movie I read I thought was interesting. This one was shot in only 4 days, immediately coming off the heels of Sorority Babes, I think even using some of the leftover film and such. And the demon hand you see in the beginning of the movie, it was Linnea's. And that's Nightmare Sisters, 1988.
Is Elvis alive? Judge for yourself by calling the 900 number on your television screen. Hear what could be the incredible Elvis phone call. Listen to the newest and longest recording ever, just released from the original taped conversation purportedly of Elvis, recorded about 4 years after the 16th of August, 1977. Call 1-900-909-ELVIS. Call now. Experience what may be the most shocking story of our time.
Hey, Mom. Yes, you. Why fuss and fret about dinner? Why not have it right here? Yes, this drive-in offers everyone in the family a real picnic treat for dinner. We've got delicious sandwiches with all the trimmings and your other dinner favorites, plus whatever you want to drink, hot or cold. Come early before the show starts, or eat while you're being entertained, or at intermission time. So why fuss? Give your family a tasty dinner at this drive-in.
Number 2 on the list, and funny that it follows directly behind... Wow, I'm having a really hard time getting that out. Funny that it follows directly behind Nightmare Sisters, and that was the beginning of the unholy trio trinity of Scream Queens, and that's Sorority Babes and the Slimeball Bolorama from 1988 by the great Dave Dakota. This is a phenomenal A++ movie in my book. I initially saw this one actually in probably the late 80s or early 90s, forget exactly when it aired, on Up All Night with Rhonda Shear, and it was actually very cut because it was airing on the USA Network. But even the cut version I absolutely loved, and that's kind of the film that cemented Linnea in my head as probably my favorite Scream Queen. Her character of Spider, you know, at that time I was super into metal and counterculture type stuff like that, and her character was just so metal, so punk rock, with her little cut shirt. Just phenomenal film, and she just great. That's, to me, one of the pinnacles of Linnea's career was Sorority Babes. And an interesting little bit of tidbit. Well, actually, I should probably tell you what it's about for those of you who haven't seen it, if any of you haven't seen it. But basically, it's your typical frat kind of student-y people doing things they shouldn't be doing, and they break into a bowling alley. And in said bowling alley, they find a cursed, I guess it's cursed bowling trophy that has an imp inside. The imp comes out and begins granting their wishes, and those wishes start to not necessarily go very well. Interesting thing about the imp, and this is that trivia I was kind of going to talk about a second ago but then didn't, is in the original trailers for the movie, he had a high-pitched kind of voice, but then when the actual movie came out, he had a deep, very unique kind of voice, which I think was cool. I think high-pitched, on a little impy type things is kind of done, but him having that deep, smooth, gravelly kind of voice was very cool. And, you know, might know a little something about gravelly voices. But yeah, I don't really know what else I can say about this one. I probably should have prepared a little more, maybe some more trivia. It's, I think I mentioned too, it's slam full of just great sleaze and jokes. It's funny. Linnea as Spider, the kind of punk rocky metal girl who was breaking into the bowling alley, I think the Robin, if I remember correctly, is phenomenal. Michelle Bauer's character is great. Brinky is in this one, but in a much smaller role. That's why, as I said before, I think of Nightmare Sisters as the culmination of the three together. Sorority Babes, if you haven't seen it, you very much need. Aha! I just thought of a piece of trivia. The poster was actually commissioned and designed before the movie. That's why he looks nothing like anything in the movie. I heard that recently. Thought that was kind of neat. Even though if you squint, the girl on the poster does kind of look like 70s era Linnea. Maybe, kind of, a little bit. Maybe it's just me. And now that brings us to number one on the list. And surprisingly, when I was putting this list together, I didn't necessarily try to think of any kind of factor bringing everything together. But I guess Linnea Quigley is just a big part of my youth and my life, and probably one of the greatest, not probably, definitely one of the greatest B-movie actresses of all time. And that's 1988's Hollywood Chainsaw Hookers by the amazing Fred Olen Ray, who I think is one of the greatest B-movie directors of all time as well. This one I initially saw at a friend's house, and the funny thing is he only had the first little bit of it taped off TV, and he had it on tape and watched it for completely different reasons than why I saw it. I mean, you know, there was all these boobies and stuff going on, and I was like, yeah, that's neat, but let's see more of the chainsaws. That was just the mentality of, I don't know, 88, I would have been like 10 years old. So the sleaze factor was a little lost a little lost for me at the point, but the chainsaws and all that stuff, that had me right there. So the basic plot of the movie, and it's interesting about this one because I would not consider Hollywood Chainsaw Hookers a horror movie. Hold on, hear me out. I think of it as a detective movie, kind of a noir, a detective comedy, really, because the movie's about a detective who's hired to find a runaway teen, which is Linnea, and he just gets caught up in this crazy underground world where there's a chainsaw worshipping ancient Egyptian cult led by Gunnar Hansen, Leatherface, and his trying to get the girl out of it, save the girl, save the day. So yeah, definitely detective kind of movie. Just has some tons and tons of wonderful nudity and gore. And probably the most iconic Linnea scene is her in the body paint doing the dance with the two chainsaws. And I think everyone knows what I'm talking about. And when I was researching this episode, I found out it took 7 hours to paint Linnea up like that. Another interesting piece of trivia I read, the temple in the movie was a recycled set from House 2, which I haven't seen House 2 in a very long time, but I have a pretty good idea. If I remember right, there's a part where they go into a world, a room in the house that's kind of ancient Inca or something like that. Anyway, I thought that was really neat. And here in my notes, I have VHS tape written very big. I have no idea why I wrote that. VHS tape. What did I mean by that? Anyway, great film. Go out and find it if you can. One of Linnea's finest performances, one of Gunnar Hansen's finest performances, one of Fred Olen Ray's best directing jobs, and a definite winner, and an A+ movie in my book all the way.